Okay, everybody, let's try to double check your answers with the questions on the video that you've watched. 28. What's the lecture mainly about? What's the lecture mainly about? Letter A, the difference between suppression and repression. Why Freud's theories of defense mechanism are correct. Some of the most common types of defense mechanism. How to solve the student's problem with unfair professor. Of course, the right answer is letter C, some of the most common types of defense mechanism. So the right answer for number 28 is letter C, some of the most common types of defense mechanism. 29. How does the student explain the term repression? Remember, when you listen to the track, there were some students who were interacting with their teacher. One of them started to explain this term, repression. How did he do it? He contrasted it with suppression. He identifies it as a conscious response. He gives several examples of it. He refers to a study by Freud. Of course, the right answer, it's letter A. He contrasts it with suppression. He contrasts it with suppression. So the right answer for number 29 is letter A. Thank you. Next. Listen to the board. For instance, let's suppose that you're very angry with your professor. Not me, of course. I'm referring to another professor. So you're angry because he has treated you unfairly in some way that could cause you to lose your scholarship. Why does the professor say this? Not me, of course. I'm referring to another professor. Let's see the choices here. She's getting the class to pay attention. She's making a joke about herself. She's asking for a compliment. She's criticizing a colleague. Of course, it's very simple and easy. It can be very obvious here that she's making a joke about herself. She's making a joke about herself. Okay? Next. Which of the following is an example of displacement that was used in the lecture? Of course, the teacher during the lecture has talked about many or various kinds or categories of mechanism. One of them was the displacement, if you still remember, and if you follow the same technique to get notes. So, letter A, insisting that the professor dislikes you when you really dislike him. Is that right? It expresses, or it's an example of displacement. I don't know. You know. Letter B, defending the professor even when you're angry about his behavior. Letter C, blaming someone in your study group instead of blaming the professor. The last one, refusing to acknowledge that a problem exists because of low grade. The right answer is, the example of displacement is blaming someone in your study group instead of blaming the professor. You're making displacement. Blaming someone in your study group instead of blaming the professor. So the right answer for number 31 is letter C, blaming someone in your study group instead of blaming the professor. 32. According to the professor, what happened in the 1990s? Letter A, the concept of defense mechanisms was abandoned. New terms were introduced for the same mechanisms. Modern researches improved upon Freud's theories. Additional categories were introduced by researchers. If you have taken enough notes, you can reach that the right answer for number 32 is letter B. New terms were introduced for the same mechanisms. New terms were introduced for the same mechanisms. So 32, letter B. '33. How does the professor organize the discussion? How does the professor organize the discussion? Letter A, she has visual aids to explain each point. She uses a scenario that students can relate to. She provides a handout with an outline. She helps students read the textbook. I believe, yes, I tell you, it's very easy. She uses a scenario that students can relate to. When she started to explain the different type of mechanisms, she gave the students more scenarios, more stories, okay, that might explain the terms of mechanisms or the distinction between different mechanisms. So the right answer for 33 is, letter B. She uses a scenario that students can relate to. Now, this is a professor's office. So it's going to be like a general conversation on a certain topic inside an office of a professor. We're going to watch it together and you will be back to me.
Listen to part of a conversation between a student and a professor.
Professor James, do you have a minute?
Sure, come on in. What can I do for you?
Well, I did pretty well on the midterm,
You sure did. One of the best grades, as I recall.
but I missed a question, and I'd appreciate it if you could help me understand what I did wrong. I have the test right here, and I just can't figure it out.
Okay, fire away.
It's question 7, the one on biotic provinces and biomes.
Oh, that one. Quite a few people missed it. I was thinking that we should go over it again in class, but anyway, let's look at your answer.
Thanks. Here's the thing. I said that a biotic province was a region with similar life, but with boundaries that prevent plants and animals from spreading to other regions. So an animal, for example, a mammal, it may have a genetic ancestor in common with another mammal. But a biome's a similar environment, an ecosystem really, like a desert or a tropical rainforest. So in the case of a biome, well, the similar climate causes the plants and animals to evolve, to adapt to the climate, and that's why they look alike.
That's good, very good, as far as you went. But there's a second part to the question. Look, right here. Include an explanation of convergent and divergent evolution. So I was looking for a more complete answer. Next time, be sure to include both parts of a question, when there are two parts, like this one. Do you know how to explain convergent and divergent evolution?
I think so. Isn't it like when a group of plants or animals, when they're separated by mountains or a large body of water, then subpopulations evolve from a common ancestor and they have similar characteristics, but their development diverges because of the separation. So that's why we call it divergent evolution.
Right. Even when the habitat's similar, if they're separated, then they diverge. How about convergent evolution then?
Well, that would be a situation where a similar environment, a habitat, it may cause plants and animals to evolve in order to adapt to the conditions. So a species that isn't really related can evolve with similar characteristics because it can look like a species in another geographic region because of adaptation. And that would be convergent evolution?
Right again. So temperature and rainfall, proximity to water, latitude and longitude all combine to determine the climate. And if we know the climate of an area, then we can actually predict what kind of life will inhabit it.
Okay. And I really did know that. I just didn't put it down. To tell the truth, I didn't see the second part, not until you pointed it out to me.
That's what I thought. Well, Jerry, it's a good idea to double-check all the questions on a test, not just my test, any test, to make sure you've answered each part of the question completely. Otherwise, you won't get full credit.
I see that. Well, live and learn.
Jerry, you're one of my best students.
Thanks. I really like biology. In fact, I'm thinking of majoring in it.
Good. That means you'll be in some of my upper-level classes.
And I'll be watching out for those two-part questions on your exams.
And all the rest of your exams. I'll be honest with you, my questions usually have two parts, so the students will have an insight into the grading system, and a lot of professors do that. In an essay question, it's difficult to know what to include and how much to write. Just read the question carefully and be sure to include all the parts. There may be 3 or 4 in some essay questions. This is the way that the professor helps you organize your answer. I'm giving my students a hint about what I'm looking for by including several parts to the question, but if you miss one of the parts, then it lowers your score.
That makes sense. I think I was just trying to finish within the time limit and I didn't read as carefully as I should have. On the final, I'll spend more time reading the questions before I start to answer them.
Good plan.
One. Why does the man go to see his professor? 2. Listen again to part of the conversation and then answer the following question.
Thanks. Here's the thing. I said that a biotic province was a region with similar life, but with boundaries that prevent plants and animals from spreading to other regions.
Why does the man say this?
Thanks. Here's the thing.
3. What did the man do wrong? 4. According to the student, what is divergent evolution? 5. What will Jerry probably do on the next test?
To start quickly the answers for this listening part, let's see the first one. Why does the man go to see his professor? The answer is exactly letter C. To clarify a question from the midterm. To clarify a question from the midterm. So letter C is the right answer for number 1. 2, listen to this part. Thanks, here's the thing. I said that a biotic province was a region with similar life, but with boundaries that prevent plants and animals from spreading to other regions. Why does the professor say this? Thanks, here's the thing. The right answer is signaling that he will explain his problem. He is signaling that he will explain his problem. So this is the right answer, which is letter D. Number 3, what did the man do wrong? The right answer, of course, it's easy to capture. Yes, letter C, he didn't answer one question completely. He didn't answer one question completely. So letter C is the best answer for number 3. Going ahead with the common question. According to the student, what's divergent evolution? Yeah, think carefully about it because we do have like 4 similar answers. If you did follow the same technique, yes, I hear someone is completing there, yes, you will be able to answer it very easily. What technique is it? Yes, someone is saying over there, taking notes. If you took notes, you will know the answer is similar group that separated may develop different characteristics. Similar group that separated may develop different characteristics. So letter C is the perfect and suitable answer for question number 4. 5. What will Jerry probably do on the next test? Of course, the answer very easily and simple to know. Yes. He will look for questions with several parts. He will read the entire test before he begins. He will ask for more time to finish. He will write an outline to each essay. Yeah, the right answer, exactly, letter A. He will look for questions with several parts in order not to forget again and answer in incomplete form, because this was his issue. So the right answer for number 5 is letter A. Now with an art history class. Art history class. Go there and then be here.
Listen to part of a discussion in an art history class.
Sorry about the tests. I don't have them finished. They just took longer to grade than I thought they would. So I'll have them for you next time. Okay then, let's begin our discussion of the ballet. If you read the chapter in your text, you already know that in 1489, a performance that was something like a dinner theater was organized to celebrate the marriage of the Duke of Milan, and a dance representing Jason and the Argonauts was performed just before the roasted lamb was served. By the way, it's interesting that the dance was called an entree, and that name has been retained for courses and meals. Anyway, about the same time, outdoor entertainment, parades and equestrian events, they were becoming more popular, and we have evidence that they were referred to as horse ballets.
So the horse ballet, was it the first time the term ballet was used?
Right. The actual term in Italian was balletti, which meant a dance done in figures, and it was characterized by the arrangement of the performers in various patterns. Actually, the balletti were staged versions of the social dances that were popular at court, and the steps, the basic movements, they were walking, swaying, and turning. So they combined in a variety of sequences, each of which was named so that they could be referred to in the directions for individual dances. In fact, specific instructions for the placement of the dancer's feet probably provided the first record of the 5 positions of classical ballet. Question?
Sorry, I'm trying to get clear on the dancers. Could you explain what the book means about court dancing? And, I'm not saying this very well.
I think I know where you're going. You see, the directions that were written down were intended as a reference for social dancing, but they were important in the history of ballet because the theatrical dances or entertainments that preceded ballet were not performed by professional dancers. Members of the court danced for the entertainment of society, and in general, the performances were in the central halls of castles and palaces, with the audience seated in galleries above, so that the floor figures could be seen when the people looked down. But back to your question. Because of the limitations of the performers and the arrangement of the staging, well, the best way to impress the audience was to keep the steps simple enough for the amateur dancers, but the geometrical patterns had to be intricate and fresh, so the spectators would go away pleased because they'd seen something new.
Oh, I get it now. That makes sense too, because everyone would be looking down at the dancers.
Exactly. Now, to continue that thought for a moment, by the middle of the 16th century, variety shows were being presented on a grand scale in northern Italy. They included both indoor and outdoor entertainment, and most people called them spettacoli. And France had begun to make a significant contribution to the dance form that evolved into modern ballet. But to be precise, it was Catherine de' Medici who used dance as part of her court entertainments, and is credited with the use of the term ballet. In 1573, I think it was 1573, anyway, she organized a huge celebration to welcome the ambassadors from Poland who had arrived to offer their country's throne to her son Henri. So she called it the Polish Ballet, and the production was staged on a landing at the top of a grand staircase. 16 ladies, and these would not have been dancers, just members of court, so they represented the 16 provinces of France, and they performed a choreographed dance with a variety of floor figures. Afterward, the audience joined in court dances, similar to the ballroom dancing that evolved later. So that's a long answer to your original question.
Now, I have a question.
Okay.
You said that the Polish ballet was the first ballet, but I thought the book said the first ballet was Queen Louise's ballet.
Good question. Well, I said the Polish ballet was the first use of the term ballet for a dance performance, but Queen Louise's ballet is generally considered the first modern ballet. As you'll remember from the book, the ballet was performed before 10,000 guests, and it was 5 hours long. When I was doing the research for this lecture, I saw several references to the time, so I know that this is accurate. But I kept thinking, no one would watch a ballet for 5 hours. But it must be correct. I can only assume that other activities were going on simultaneously, like a banquet and conversation, don't you think? Anyway, what makes Queen Louise's ballet so unique, besides the length, and why it's the first modern ballet, is that it was connected by a storyline, or in technical terms, it's called dramatic cohesion. Each scene was related to the tales of Circe, a Greek enchantress, who used her powers to battle with man and the gods. The triumph of good, portrayed by Jupiter over evil, portrayed by Circe, was told in a, let's call it a unified production.
6. What is the discussion mainly about? 7. Listen again to part of the lecture, and then answer the following question.
So I'll have them for you next time. Okay then, let's begin our discussion of the ballet.
Why does the professor say this?
Okay then.
Eight. According to the professor, what does the term balletti mean? 9. How did the early choreographers accommodate the abilities of amateur performers? 10. Why does the professor mention that he checked several references about the length of Queen Louise's ballet? 11. What can be inferred about the professor?